Monster Train 2. Man, I have very much been looking forward to this game. Monster Train 1 is one of my favorite roguelikes ever, period. Probably in like top 5 to top 10 or so. And when they announced the second one, I was very much looking forward to it. And I was very curious how they would go about it. I do think that Monster Train 1 is honestly one of the best deck building games out there. For anyone who hasn't played the first one, I would highly suggest taking a look at that one before looking at this review, as I'm not going to be really talking about any of the core mechanics of the game, since they're pretty much all the same from the first. I'm also going to be talking about all the new additions in this sequel. So this game came out at the time of recording. I just started playing it like yesterday. I had a lot of plans to do throughout the week, but then when they just dropped the game, I was like, oh my gosh, scrap everything. I've been playing all day, all night pretty much. And I've clocked in 13 hours currently. Now, I haven't found the true ending of the game, but I've found enough things for me to be pretty confident about what I think of it. I think I have pretty much seen everything outside of the final encounter. So let's start with audio visuals now, and overall vibe and story, the usual. This is the same team of people that made the first game, which means that there's going to be similar art, music, sound design, all of this. They really made sure that it was just a sequel. It doesn't feel drastically different like what we're going to be expecting from like Enter the Gungeon 2, for instance. No, this is very much just a continuation of the first game with just some additions to it. Also, I do want to point out this is currently in early access, so there's still going to be some more stuff coming within the next few months, as we can expect. I love the visuals of the first game. I like the art style overall. I think it has a very distinct look to it. I would say in this game, it looks a tiny bit different. It looks a little bit more goofy, slightly more goofy on some aspects. You're gonna find some characters have like saxophones. There's an entire like band of units you can find. Not all of them are like that. The game still takes itself, fairly seriously, all things considered, but there's definitely more humor than in the first game without going too far. Also, they've put in more weight to the story. Now, in this game, there's actual story elements where you're gonna have like some moments where you just see like two characters talking to each other with text bubbles. That was not the case in the first game, so you get a little bit more insight to the whole story, and it's good. I would say it's all right. Like I didn't play the first game for the story. I mean, I like the idea behind what was going on. Heaven is attacking hell here. Well, I don't want to spoil too much, but basically now hell and heaven are getting together because there's a bigger threat. And so you get those characters from the first game that are kind of like mixed in, talking to like angel characters, which is kind of like a different take. You obviously get a bunch of new characters, but they really do try to bring back a lot from the first game. Like, oh, remember this guy? Well, now he's corrupted, haha, kind of thing. Now, sometimes the conversations between the units that you'll get between runs and everything, some of them again are pretty goofy. Like you'll have one that's like, oh, just one of the units is at a bar and like he doesn't know how to socialize, so he's just practicing how to socialize. And it's like, okay, sure, it's a bit of a weird vibe to me, but it's cute, all things considered, and they're not all goofy, if that makes sense. One thing that I wish they would have added for these conversations, since it's just literally two PNGs just talking with just text, I kind of wish there was at least not voice acting, but just some sounds, those things where if you have a big character that's about to start, you go, oh, ah, yeah, that kind of stuff. It might seem like very small and people might not really think about it too much, but I do think it really does help the immersion, especially in this instance where there is going to be constantly some conversations in between runs, but it's just two PNGs with text bubbles. So I think they could have added a little bit more to sell the whole plot thing even more. But I like it. I mean, I could imagine not everybody's going to be on board with this change, with this addition, I guess. But I think it's pretty cool. The music of the first game is one of my favorite tracks of any roguelike out there. You have to listen to the first game. It's super cool. It's like this orchestral rock and roll, super serious track with like a lot of choirs because it's about hell and heaven. So you get like the hell side that's like electric guitars, and you have the heaven side, which is like a whole choir, but they come together to do this epic kind of like soundtrack. In this game, it's still the same composer, and I would say that he did a really good job, but it's a little bit more in your face. It's a little less subtle than in the first game. I think it went way more in the metal electric guitar vibe than the orchestral side that was in the first game. So I prefer more the first game's vibe in that regard, but I would still say that a lot of the tracks in the second game are still really, really solid. A couple really stand out to me that I will definitely be listening to outside of the game. And other than that, you know, like the art style, the sound design, these are very similar from the first game in general. It's great, sounds good, looks good, thumbs up. They've added some new cool stuff visually as well. So first of all, there's a whole hub, as you can see right here. There's not much to it. It's mostly the same as like the first game, except that instead of the options just being, you know, text-based. Now there's a little area here, and every now and then one of those random spots will light up, so you can have like one of those, again, interactions with the NPCs. There's also the train depot, and you can actually customize some of the floors layout visually, which is cool because, again, you have 3 different floors, and so just being able to customize them is really fun. There's not many right now. It would be cool to have even more. And I'm seeing this one right here, which defeat the Titans with all clan combinations. That is something that is going to be one of the top crazy achievements in any roguelike game out there. It takes so long to do that. It's the thing I've been trying to do in the first game. And in this game, it's going to take even longer. And the first game, I'm at like almost 150 hours, I think, trying to get that achievement. And we'll get to the big spoiler thing that I'll talk about with spoiler warnings, obviously. But it will explain why this is some crazy stuff here. So I hope I'm going to bring more to it in the long run. But yeah, it's cool. Just some little visual stuff here. So let's talk gameplay. Now, the gameplay, once again, is very similar to the first game. It's pretty much exactly the same. They didn't really change any core mechanic in the game. They've only added new mechanics. Right now, obviously, they're always going to be adding new mechanics from the different clans, right? So you have new clans. They all have their unique mechanics. I'm not going to talk about all of these. I'm going to talk about like more core additional mechanics that have been added. And there's a few of them. The first are pretty much the floors, equipment, and abilities. In addition to having units and spell cards that you can also find floor cards and equipment cards. The floor cards is something that you just put on the floor of your train, and it will give like a passive effect on that floor. They're usually very powerful. That's a very, very nice addition that I think fits perfectly with the game. That means that each floor of your train can have a unique effect that takes place constantly while you're playing. Super cool. Makes sense. Equipment, you can have cards that you just put, an equipment piece on a unit during combat. Cool. Yeah, whatever. It's like a more complicated buff to put on a unit. Sure, it works. It's not like something that I absolutely adore, but it's a nice little addition. Abilities is some units will have an ability that you can activate on a cooldown. Whenever you want, you can just activate it. It's a nice way to add more choice during combat, because now instead of just constantly having only the auto battling system, you can also just choose when you want to use an ability from a unit. So it just gives a little bit more to do for the player. And overall, this brings me to the biggest difference, I guess, between the first and the second. Naturally, this second edition is going to be more complicated. This makes sense for a deck building game that sticks to the first game's recipe. Naturally, if you're not going to be changing much, all you can do is kind of add things, right? So there's a little bit more to do. I don't think it's too much, to be honest. I think they did a good job to still keep it fairly simple-ish with how much there is going on. It's actually not too crazy hard to keep track of, but yeah, it's going to be definitely a bit harder to learn all the different mechanics and everything going on. So kind of perfect for someone who loves the first game, I would say. I'm very happy to see all these new additions that just make me have to do more choices. One of the coolest addition to the game, and I didn't even think of it from a design standpoint, but I think it's so amazing, is the deployment mechanic. One of the issues from the first game was the fact that you would draft units, right? You would have units in your deck, and these units, they're kind of like the core of all your combat. You really need those units to be placed down fairly quickly. And you kind of had to be lucky and draw them, or find ways to draw them early. And in this game, they decide, screw it, let's make the game more consistent by having a deployment phase at the beginning of every single battle, where before a fight starts, you're going to have a deployment phase where you're going to draw all your minions, and you're going to have extra energy to just deploy them on the train. Now, naturally, this is going to make the game much easier. It's going to be much easier than the first game in that regard, but naturally, they made the overall difficulty obviously a bit higher to accommodate from that. But I think it's so much cooler to have a bit more consistency, considering that you really just want to put your troops down quickly, right? And it's not like you can put every single troop at the beginning. You still have to choose which ones you want to put early, because you're usually not going to have enough energy to put everything down. But I think the consistency makes runs much more fun, so you can focus on more fun combos. And let me tell you, the first game obviously is quite known for the crazy amount of combos it can do. This game still got it. You can do some insane combos, some ridiculous things every run. I feel like the potential to go crazy is even higher than the first game, because they've enabled more ways to duplicate your cards, and I think overall they've enabled more ways to just do some ridiculous combos in general, which after 13 hours, I don't know if it feels too unbalanced. As someone who's very comfortable with the game, I've been able to climb the covenants pretty consistently. I'm hoping that it's not going to be too polarizing, where you either are going to be too weak to be the first few encounters, or way too overpowered too quickly because of the amount of stuff you can do in this sequel. But overall, I would say that doesn't seem to be a concern to me right now, just something I'll have to keep track of as I continue playing. I'm going to just jump straight to the biggest surprise this game offered. Now, I have not been surprised this much by a roguelike in years. I was playing for a few hours, and then after 12 hours, they just dropped something. I was just blown away. Now, this is pretty massive spoiler territory, something that you will discover, again, roughly a dozen hours in. At least that was my experience. So if you don't want this spoiled, then skip ahead. There should be timestamps to skip to the next section. But I just need to talk about it because it is one of the coolest things I've ever experienced in a roguelike. So, Monster Train 1, there were 5 clans without the DLC. And you can pick any clan, and from any of these clans, you can pick 2 of the starting heroes, which drastically change the way you play. And then you can always also add an additional clan to it, and you also have a choice of 2, right? It's hard to explain. I'm not doing a good job, but if you know the game, you know what I'm talking about. And in this game, they did the same thing, right? They added 5 clans, each with 5 champions, so a ton of different possibilities. But then they decided to add a little extra thing after you've played enough. If I click on the library, so you can see the book log, they hide this from the player early on. You might realize, wait a minute, what is this here? Those are all the clans from the first game. That's right, they decided to bring back the clans from the first game to double the amount of combinations, which is honestly mind-blowing, because the first game was already so popular because of the amount of customization you could do with all the different combinations of clans. They've decided to double that, which ultimately means that, yeah, there's going to be 180 possible combinations of clans. And that achievement that I was talking about, it requires you to do all 180 on the highest difficulty if you want to unlock that cosmetic. I might have to do a series where I just try to get that unlocked, because I'm going to imagine it's going to take months for anyone to get it at all. In any case, usually, recycling old content from the previous game doesn't sound like a great idea, but for a card game like this, it's actually fantastic, because you don't have to play with them, and you could just only focus on the new stuff. And not to mention that when you start a new run here, there's always the option to go for random covenants, right? You do it randomly. They even give you the choice to just do random clan altogether, or just random clans from Monster Train 2, or random clans from Monster Train 1. So they really do respect the fact that, if you don't want to play with the old stuff, that's totally fine, because you just want to play with the new stuff. But to me, that just seems like a lot more content, and ultimately it just means that there shouldn't be any reason to play the first game anymore, because it's all the same thing from the first game with new monsters, new enemies. The monster design and some of the relics are going to be different naturally, but ultimately this is kind of feels like when they announced the new Super Smash Bros. Game, right? Where it's like, they're all here. It's like you just take the old stuff and you put it into a new game and you double the content. And in a deck building game, I think that actually works. That blew me away, and I think that it was a really cool surprise that they were able to successfully hide from me, which is hard to do these days, right? Because just from looking at different achievements and looking at different cards, it's hard to hide massive things like these from people that are playing the game, especially people that know the game very well like me. So that surprise was something I will never forget. It was one of the coolest moments I experienced in a roguelike in recent years. I absolutely love it. All right, now I'm just going to talk about a few notes, random notes here and there that I've written down, some pros, some cons. So when you start a run, naturally you can choose your clans just like usual, but now you can also change your Pyre heart. Now this is where your health is, and you can see you can change, all of them have different health and attack values, but more importantly, they all come with unique effects. These effects can be massive. My favorite one, for instance, is add the options to copy cards at the merchants. That's so cool. I can just duplicate a bunch of really powerful cards, create some ridiculous combos. You've got, you know, being able to freeze your entire hand once per battle. Super cool things. Just gives you even more customization to do with all the clans and all the hearts and everything. So that was really cool. There's also the dimensional portal in this game, which are kind of like unique challenges that you can do. And, you know, I'm not a massive fan of challenges myself, but they're cool. There was something similar to that in the first game, but in here you actually get to unlock some things, not things that are absolutely necessary to unlock, but some cool little things like some cosmetics. And I did do one just for fun, and it was a good time. I actually built a ridiculously OP build, and you can actually also unlock your achievements through this if you just really like challenge runs like these. So it's cool to just see like some custom made challenges, because the first game had a lot of flexibility with how you want to just do some fun little customized runs, and here they actually, you know, design some specifically, and you can just go for them if you want. That can be your own little challenge if that's the kind of stuff you like. Overall, I would say that they've added a lot more achievement hunting in this game, which is great. More reasons to continue playing, especially with the more lore you uncover. There's some things that say I can't play, or for instance, some of those challenges you can only unlock if you've progressed the story enough. So overall, they've put more care into overall progression and pacing, which is cool. Just more reasons to continue playing. A cool little nice touch I just want to bring attention to. This is very minor, but in a world where very few developers do that, I think it's cool to point out. In this game, they really try to make an effort to note when an artist designed a particular card. So if you click on any card, you should be able to see who was the artist behind it, which I really like. They always put the soundtrack when a fight starts. And also, they've even put like specific events. It will say who designed the event. That's so cool. I mean, very few people will pay attention to it, but I just think it's cool. Just, you know, bring some attention to the credits. People usually don't pay much attention to it, so I really respect that. And finally, for the pros, something I have to bring attention to, probably the most amazing feature, is googly eyes options. I don't know if that was in the first game, maybe it was, but whether it was or not, that's an option in this game, okay? Yeah. All right, now I'm going to talk about the few cons that I have currently. When I say cons, they're just very minor things that I personally have. The first thing is they've added the addition of the undo button. Now, that's a bit of a conversation, I guess, but basically, if you messed up an action, you can press the undo button and it resets the turn. Now, I like it, and I also have some issues with it. In the first game, if you were at a really high level, or any level for that matter, if you did a mistake, you could just quit out of the game, restart the game, and it would restart the fight for you, which was kind of cheating. But sometimes, you know, you did a really, really stupid mistake because there's a lot to keep track of, and then you're like, oh my gosh, that's so annoying. Even I did that every now and then when I was like at a very last fight, and I just did a stupid mistake. I just pressed one wrong button and everything screwed up, because in this game, that really can happen. So I like that aspect that they were like, you know what, we don't want people to like restart their game, and we don't want to code the game so that it doesn't happen anymore, right? It could very well have happened so that currently in this game, if you restart the game, you're actually just going to be placed exactly where you left off, as opposed to restart the fight like in the first game, which I think makes sense. You know, it's kind of stupid to have to restart the game if you want to fix an error. So they put the undo button. That's cool. The undo button, unfortunately, is not by action, it's by entire turn, which I don't know why they just didn't do it for the action if they were going to go for that anyway, because usually it's just the one thing that is the problem. And also, it kind of takes a long time to load the full turn. Naturally, they didn't want it to take this long to load, but it can take a little bit. But I guess the one issue I have is that you can kind of abuse that button because there's nothing stopping you from using it. And my issue is there are some cards that do random effects, which means you could theoretically do that random effect, and if you don't like the outcome, you could just do the undo button, and then that way you don't get punished for random effects. I don't love that. That means nothing is random as long as you're patient enough to just do the undo button constantly. So, yeah, I get it, but I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not too sure how I would fix it either, but anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. Naturally, the new clans are obviously going to be a little bit more complicated than the first one, because the first one could just easily get away with just, you know, a clan that's all focused on dealing more damage, a clan that's all focused on health. You can't really recycle that, right? You're going to have to come up with new stuff. So I would say they're not as well, I mean, some of them are pretty cool. Some mechanics I'm not a huge fan of. The whole new moon, full moon system of the third clan is just a little meh to me. But the more I've been playing, the more I've actually been able to have some pretty cool, fun combos with some of the clans in general. So it's still really fun, but if I had to pick my favorite clans, it would probably still be from the first game, but just by a little bit. And I've only played 12 hours of this, and I've played like 150 of the first game, so I know much more of the first game, naturally. And lastly, this is more on my end, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but one thing I do miss from the first game was the fusing mechanic from the DLC. Now, I know not everybody loved the DLC of the first game, and I didn't love it either. Ultimately, I thought the clan was kind of mediocre, but there was a system where you could fuse your own units. If you had two different units, you could fuse them together and it would create a unique unit, which meant that you could really create some really cool creations. And with the amount of units that were available in the game, you would always find new cool fused units, which I thought was a really, really fun system. To my understanding, this system is not in this game. Maybe it will be later, I don't know. And I do understand that, you know, you might not always want everything from the previous game, but that was something that I personally loved. But I might be alone on this. It's not a huge deal. Overall, as you might have realized, I don't have many negatives to say about this game. I would say this game is pretty fantastic, especially with the big element that I talked about in the spoiler section. That by itself might make this potentially better than the first game. Honestly, I'm gonna continue playing this game a lot, and I could see myself putting as many hours in this game as in the first game. Now, again, I've only played a little bit, but from what I'm seeing and from the different clans I've played, and I've played already like a solid 8 to 9 runs, this game is really, really impressive. All the additions might be a little much for some people. Maybe some would prefer the simpler version of this game. But to me, I don't think they're too overwhelming. And the additional customization options offered at the beginning of each run, and with all the new mechanics, yeah, I think Monster Train 2 might be contender for my favorite roguelike game of the year. And I'm really excited to sink in more hours into it. Once again, early access, so still new things to come up. I'm imagining they're going to do some balance tweaks here and there, but honestly, the balance seems pretty good so far, so you really did a good job. If you like the first game, definitely try this game. There is no reason not to play this game if you like the first one. They did a fantastic job with this sequel. I'm very excited to see where this goes. I'm really loving it. And yeah, this game gets my double thumbs up of approval. So yeah, that's about it.